The woman accidentally glanced at the surveillance footage. She was terrified to discover that 3 unknown men had secretly entered her home. Annie froze in place from fear, but thinking of her daughter still asleep in the room, she didn't have time to think. She ran straight into her daughter's room and quickly woke her up. However, just as they ran out the door, they ran into the intruders coming towards them. In a panic, Annie grabbed her daughter and rushed into the elevator. She quickly closed the elevator doors, blocking the intruders outside. But the other intruders were already waiting downstairs. In this critical moment, Annie pressed the emergency button. The elevator began to rise again. The intruders grew angry instantly, rushing upstairs to catch them. Annie hurriedly pulled her daughter into the safe room. They managed to close the heavy door just before the intruders arrived. The intruders pounded wildly on the door outside. Only then did Annie finally breathe a sigh of relief. But the intruders didn't give up. They grabbed a large hammer, trying to break through the ceiling. The mother and daughter could only listen in fear. However, the intruders clearly underestimated the ceiling's thickness. They started arguing among themselves. Watching the chaos on the monitor, Annie suddenly had an idea. She pressed the intercom and shouted at them, hoping to scare them away. Unexpectedly, one of the intruders was a community security guard. He showed no fear at all. Instead, he threatened Annie to hand over the safe. Then he pulled out various professional tools and started smashing the walls forcefully. Because he knew the community well, he clearly knew where the pipes were. His goal was to force the mother and daughter out. Looking at the gas tank the man had prepared, his accomplices immediately understood. Annie, watching the monitor, did not yet realize the ventilation in the safe room had been breached by the intruders. Soon Annie suddenly smelled a strange odor. She leaned towards the vent to check. Suddenly she felt dizzy from the fumes. Luckily, her daughter found a vent connected to the outside. They had to breathe through this small opening. But this was not a long-term solution. So Annie endured the discomfort and sealed all the vents. However, the tape she used could not withstand the strong airflow. The mother and daughter's situation became extremely dangerous. At this critical moment, Annie suddenly pulled out a lighter. In that instant, she came up with a bold idea.